It started with a golf cart, a clipboard, and a neighborhood too quiet for its own good. Winder, Georgia. Late afternoon. The sun hung low in the sky, bleeding burnt orange across the rooftops of a cul-de-sac where silence usually passed for civility. Wind rustled through blooming azaleas, swaying with just enough grace to keep the illusion of peace intact. Danielle Carter pulled into her driveway with the tired grace of someone who just worked a double shift. Her Barrow County Sheriff's Office SUV hummed low, parking neatly beside a row of geraniums she'd planted with her daughter. The street was still. Peaceful. Or so it seemed. She didn't notice the golf cart until it whipped around the corner. It wove through trash cans like a heat-seeking missile, fast and purposeful. Danielle blinked, catching a flash of mirrored sunglasses in the rearview. Her hands remained on the steering wheel. She sighed. Not today. Her phone buzzed. Ava, 15, you want me to start dinner? Danielle smiled tiredly. She was about to text back when the golf cart skidded to a full stop behind her vehicle. It blocked her in. The driver climbed out. She was short, compact, like a coiled spring of certainty. Cropped blonde hair. Sunglasses perched high on her forehead. Clipboard tucked under her arm like a badge. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She walked up to the SUV like she owned the asphalt. Danielle cracked her window just enough to speak. She kept her tone even, polite. Can I help you? The woman didn't respond with an introduction. You can't park here, she said flatly. This is private property. Danielle blinked, confused. I live here. The woman's eyes narrowed. Not with curiosity. With offense. Whose house is this? Danielle glanced toward her porch, where a swing still moved slightly from the wind. Mine. A pause. Short, clipped, and judgmental. I don't think so, the woman replied, folding her arms. I've lived on this street for 16 years. I know who belongs here. Danielle forced a smile. Patient, practiced. Then you should know I moved in 7 months ago. Danielle Carter. No recognition crossed the woman's face. No realization. No apology. ID, please. I'm on the HOA board. You could be trespassing. Danielle's fingers tightened around her phone. Her voice dropped just slightly. I don't need to show you anything, ma'am. I told you, I live here. The woman stepped closer, her shadow sliding across Danielle's door. If you don't cooperate, I'm calling the police. I have every right to detain someone I believe is committing a crime. Her chest puffed with pride. This is a citizen's arrest. Danielle gave a soft laugh. Not from amusement. From disbelief. Are you detaining all your neighbors today? Or just the black ones? The woman's expression shifted like glass cracking. Don't pull that card, she snapped. This has nothing to do with race. It has to do with suspicious behavior and trespassing. Danielle leaned back against her seat, eyes tracing the soft swirl of a cloud in the rearview mirror. 12 hours of patrol. 2 theft reports. A high-speed chase. A domestic call that left her soaked in the rain for 45 minutes while convincing a woman not to press charges against the man she still loved. And now, this. Still no name. Still no apology. The woman raised her phone. I'm calling Barrow County right now. Danielle slowly reached across the seat and picked up her wallet. She moved deliberately. No sudden motions. She flipped it open and held it to the window. Badge. Photo ID. Barrow County Sheriff's Office. The woman froze. Danielle's voice was low but commanding. I am Barrow County. She paused. Now get your golf cart off my property. But the moment shifted again. A light flicked on across the street. Then another. Porch lights. Doors creaking open. Faces behind phones. Curtains fluttering as neighbors stepped out, watching. It wasn't just between Danielle and the woman anymore. It was about everyone watching. And what they were going to do next. Act 2, the weight of a badge. Danielle Carter had spent her life learning how to walk into tension and not let it consume her. But that didn't mean she didn't feel it. She felt it in her jaw, in her calves, in the sharp breath she pulled in before stepping out of the car. She closed the car door behind her gently, like she didn't want to wake a sleeping child. The woman flinched. Just slightly. Her hands stayed by her sides, but her stance shifted like someone who had just remembered they weren't actually in control. Danielle stood still. "I've asked you to leave my property," she said quietly. The woman, undeterred, pointed at the badge. "That could be fake. Anyone can buy one of those online." Danielle studied her for a long beat. "You want to call dispatch? Ask for me by name. Sheriff Danielle Carter. Or maybe I should get your plate and file a report," the woman muttered. "You're still trying to prove I don't belong here," Danielle said. "Even after everything." Porch lights flickered on like blinking eyes. More neighbors emerged. Some with phones. Some with folded arms. A few simply stood still, caught in the spell of confrontation. From her front door, Ava peeked through the window. Danielle didn't look back, but her voice carried. "Back inside, baby." The door clicked shut. The woman's expression soured. "That your daughter?" she asked. Danielle didn't respond. "You bringing kids into this neighborhood too?" Danielle took a small step forward. Not aggressive. Just measured. Calm. "Watch your tone." A voice broke through the stillness. "Margaret, maybe let it go." It was Walter Dunn. Retired mechanic. 3 doors down. Wore the same camo baseball cap every day. Danielle had once helped his wife with groceries during a storm. He hadn't forgotten. Margaret turned, her jaw set. "This doesn't concern you, Walt." Walter didn't blink. "It does now. That's a sheriff you're yelling at in her own driveway. What exactly are you trying to prove?" Margaret's voice raised, thin with defensiveness. "I'm trying to keep our neighborhood safe." "From who?" Beatrice asked from beside Walter. "A black woman in her own driveway." Danielle said nothing. She didn't need to. The silence said enough. Margaret's face flushed under the porch lights, caught between pride and panic. Her fingers clutched her phone like a weapon she no longer knew how to use. Her mouth opened, words forming, excuses, perhaps, or another accusation, but nothing came out. Danielle held her ground. "You're on camera," she said, motioning subtly toward the neighbors filming. "You're being recorded. And you still haven't taken one step back." Across the street, a door creaked open. A tall Korean-American man in his 40s stepped forward. Julian Park. Always quiet. Always polite. Lived at the end of the cul-de-sac with his wife and son. Danielle had waved at him in passing. That was it. But tonight, Julian's voice broke through the night like a clean breath of air. "That's enough, Margaret." The crowd turned. Margaret looked betrayed. "Julian, are you serious?" He nodded, arms folded. "Dead serious. You're embarrassing yourself and this whole street." A silence fell again. But this one was different. Less tense. More weighted with realization. Like the air had shifted. Beatrice cleared her throat. "You've made your point, Margaret. Time to go." Margaret glanced around, searching for backup. But the faces around her were no longer blank. They were quietly judging, tired of the show. Danielle stayed calm, but her pulse thumped. Her daughter was still behind that door. Watching. Margaret stepped toward her golf cart but paused long enough to pull out her phone and snap a photo of Danielle's license plate. Danielle raised an eyebrow. Really? Documentation, Margaret muttered. But before she could leave, another figure emerged from the shadows. Charlene. Tall, late 50s, strong presence. Black. Quiet power. Lived 2 doors down for 8 years. She walked up and simply said, "Sheriff. If you ever need anything, we're here." "I'm Charlene." Danielle nodded. "Appreciate that." Then, flashing red and blue lights. A squad car turned the corner. Danielle's jaw clenched. Someone had still called the police. The car stopped. 2 deputies stepped out. Young. Unfamiliar. "Ma'am," the first one said, hand near his holster, "we got a call about a suspicious individual refusing to identify themselves. Can you step back from the vehicle?" Danielle didn't move. "What's your name, deputy?" He blinked. "Excuse me." "You heard me." The second deputy looked closer, recognizing her uniform, the badge, the steady composure. "Wait," he said, "you're Sheriff Danielle Carter." She nodded. Badge 23604. Standing in her own driveway. Both deputies froze. We weren't told that," one stammered. "No," Danielle replied. "I bet you weren't." The crowd was still. Phones still rolling. Witnesses all around. "Do you want to file a report?" the first deputy asked. Danielle could have. She wanted to. But she also knew the cost. The gossip. The retaliation. The label, troublemaker. "No," she said finally. "But tell dispatch to start vetting calls better. I shouldn't have to prove who I am in my own driveway." "Yes, ma'am," they replied. The squad car backed up and pulled away. The night settled again, but nothing felt the same. Charlene stepped beside Danielle. "You handled that better than I would've." Danielle gave a tired smile. "You get used to it." "That's the part that stings," Charlene said. "That you have to." Danielle nodded, but her voice was barely a whisper. "It's not that I get used to it. It's that I refuse to let it make me smaller." ACT 4, Headlines and Silences. By morning, the neighborhood was buzzing. A blurry photo appeared on Facebook, Danielle, standing beside her SUV, captioned, "So the woman I accused of trespassing turned out to be the county sheriff. Guess we all make mistakes." No name attached, but everyone knew. The comments trickled in. "She didn't need to be so aggressive. Probably just a misunderstanding. No need to make it racial." Danielle read them silently. She didn't reply. The ones who stayed silent spoke the loudest. Walter and Beatrice dropped off a casserole that evening. Charlene brought a book. Julian messaged Ava about tutoring. Small kindnesses. But on her walks, Danielle felt the difference. The stairs. The retreating steps. The cold shoulders at the mailbox. Ava felt it too. At school, someone asked, "Why was your mom on Facebook?" Another joked, "Guess y'all run the block now, huh?" That night, Ava sat at the kitchen table, math homework untouched. "You okay?" Danielle asked. Ava shrugged. Why'd she do that? Danielle thought before answering. Because some people think if they don't recognize you, you don't belong. Ava looked up. That's dumb. It is, Danielle said. But that doesn't stop them from believing it. Ava frowned. Are we gonna move? Do you want to? Ava shook her head. No. I like our house. Our yard. Our life. Danielle smiled. Then we stay. ACT 5, Standing Ground. 2 days later, an envelope appeared in Danielle's mailbox. HOA letterhead. As a result of recent events, we will be revisiting our neighborhood watch protocols. All residents are encouraged to report unfamiliar activity. Safety comes first. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just bureaucracy. Danielle folded the letter and put it in a drawer. That evening, she walked down the street, past trimmed lawns and pulled blinds. She stopped in front of Margaret's house. She didn't knock. Didn't speak. Just stood. Present. From behind a curtain, Margaret peeked out. Phone in hand. Unsure. Danielle stayed long enough to be seen. Then she turned and walked home. She had already spoken. With her presence. With her patience. With her refusal to disappear. By morning, the neighborhood was buzzing. A blurry photo appeared on Facebook, Danielle, standing beside her SUV, captioned, "So the woman I accused of trespassing turned out to be the county sheriff. Guess we all make mistakes." No name attached, but everyone knew. The comments trickled in. She didn't need to be so aggressive. Probably just a misunderstanding. No need to make it racial. I've never seen her before either. Danielle read them silently. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. The ones who stayed silent spoke the loudest. The ones she thought were different, the ones who waved from their lawns, who dropped off banana bread her first week, were nowhere to be found. Except a few. Walter and Beatrice dropped off a casserole that evening, like it was just another Wednesday. Charlene brought over a worn paperback mystery novel. She didn't mention the incident. She just gave Danielle a hug and said, "You were seen." Loud and clear. Julian messaged Ava, "My son's struggling in math, think you could help him study this week?" Like nothing had happened. Like it was just Tuesday again. But on her walks, Danielle felt the shift. Cold shoulders at the mailbox. Awkward silences. Dogs walked on the opposite side of the street. Nothing overt. Just enough to notice. Just enough to feel. Ava felt it too. At school, her friend Eliza asked, "Why was your mom on Facebook?" Someone else said, "Guess y'all run the whole street now." Danielle hadn't prepared her daughter for this, not the quiet freeze-out, not the sense of being turned into a headline. That night, Ava sat at the kitchen table, math worksheet untouched, pencil unmoving. "You okay?" Danielle asked. Ava shrugged. "I'm fine." "You're not." Ava looked up. Why did she do that? Danielle paused. "Because some people think if they don't recognize you, you don't belong." That's dumb. It is. But it doesn't stop them from believing it. "Are we gonna move?" Danielle looked across the table, met her daughter's eyes. "Do you want to move?" Ava shook her head. "No. I like our house. I like our yard. I like our life." Danielle smiled. "Then we stay." They sat in silence for a moment. Heavy. Steady. Then Ava asked, "What do you think she's going to do?" "Margaret?" Ava nodded. Danielle leaned back, thought about it. She'll either double down, or disappear. She wasn't wrong. But Margaret didn't disappear. 2 weeks later, the next HOA meeting was packed. Normally, maybe a dozen residents showed up. That night, every seat was filled. Some stood along the back wall. Others leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes wary. The usual table of store-bought cookies and lukewarm lemonade sat untouched. Danielle walked in quietly. No uniform. Just jeans and a soft sweater. She hadn't planned to speak. She wasn't there for a showdown. Just to see. Margaret sat at the head of the table. Clipboard clutched. Mouth tight. She avoided Danielle's eyes. Craig Holman, the HOA president, a nervous man who always looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, cleared his throat. We, know it's been a tense few weeks. Some unwanted attention. Some, eye-opening moments. Murmurs. Julian Park, sitting near the front, nodded. Charlene sat beside him, arms folded. Craig continued, we just want to make sure this neighborhood remains a place where everyone feels safe. That's all we've ever wanted. Danielle stood. The room hushed. I agree, she said, voice steady. Safety should never be an excuse to harass your neighbors. Especially when your neighbor wears the same badge you'd call in an emergency. Silence. I didn't move here to cause trouble. I moved here to raise my daughter. In peace. But what happened in my driveway wasn't peace. It was a reminder. She looked around. No matter how hard I've worked, what uniform I wear, to some people, I'll always be a question mark. A few heads lowered. A few others nodded. Craig cleared his throat again. We understand, and we're sorry. Danielle nodded once. Then show it. Change how you talk about safety. Stop treating unfamiliar as a threat. And maybe, start knocking on a door before dialing 911. A pause. Then quiet clapping. Not many. But enough. Margaret didn't move. But her jaw tightened. Her pen tapped once, then stopped. ACT 7, the porch light. That weekend, 3 teenage girls knocked on Danielle's door. Ava opened it. They held a handmade sign, we're glad you're our neighbor. Ava blinked. Wait, what? One of the girls stepped forward. We made it for your mom. We're in your grade. I think we have lunch at the same table sometimes. Ava smiled. A little surprised. A little shy. You do. Danielle appeared behind her, read the sign, then looked at the girls. Barely 15 or 16. Thank you, she said, voice soft. That means more than you know. Small gestures. But sometimes those are the ones that crack the ice. That night, Danielle and Ava sat on the porch. Quiet. Crickets chirping. The hum of a lawn mower fading down the street. Do you still think we're staying? Ava asked. Danielle didn't hesitate. We're staying. Ava nodded. Good. They sat in silence a while longer. Just breathing. Just being. Then Danielle said something she hadn't told anyone. I didn't handle the driveway moment the way I wanted to. Ava looked over. What do you mean? Danielle shrugged. I wanted to yell. Scream. Snap back. But instead, I stayed still. Because I knew if I got loud, I'd be proving her point in someone else's eyes. Ava frowned. That's not fair. No. It's not. But I didn't stay calm to protect her. I stayed calm to protect you. Ava didn't respond right away. Then she leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. You're strong, she said. Danielle wrapped her arm around her. So are you.